about Greece in the Supreme Court not that long ago. And then in May, our program is titled from Park Avenue to Park Ridge. So it will be a story of the Park Avenue Hospital moving out to Greece, becoming Park Ridge and now Unity Hospital. Next month's program is already available to register on the library's website. So tonight we're going to introduce a longtime acquaintance of mine, Linda. I went to a program at when the Greece Library first opened. I went to a program about carousels, and so we're gonna. I'm sure in the last 20 years that program has changed a little bit. So Linda, it's up to you. Now people can. By the way, you can take your view, and if you put it on speaker view, the speaker takes up the whole screen. Sometimes people like that better. So Linda, where did Linda go? There she is.
I'm right here.
If people, it looks like everybody has been muted, I will mute myself and take it away.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And welcome everyone who's attending. I hope everyone can hear me okay. It's funny to say that my first presentations on carousels was actually at the Greece Public Library. So it's really enjoyable to have a presentation that's involving the Greece Public Library. I grew up in Greece. I'm sure there's a lot of Greece residents here and some from all over the country, which is great. So I think that probably a lot of you are local, but there's some from different states, which is great because carousels move around a lot. Carousel in different states before and after. I'm going to go to my screen here. Yeah. So this is. Can everyone see my the carousel image right here?
Looks good.
Okay, look great. Yes, so I'm calling this Carousels of Monroe County, and mostly this is about the Carousels of Monroe County. Carousels have had so much history all over the country, and we've really had a chance to enjoy a lot of carousels in Monroe County. I'm going to start a little bit about myself. I've been researching carousels since 1994, and what really prompted me to start researching was the Seabreeze carousel that burned down. It was a tragic fire, and it had me wondering what carousels operated in Monroe County and what happened to the other ones. There had to be other carousels that either burned down or were lost, and made me curious where they'll go. So I have published carousel books, five different books on carousels, and I'm always interested in researching carousel history. I'm currently researching mall carousels across the United States because I'm finding that mall carousels are disappearing at a high rate across the United States as malls close, and also with COVID, its impact to mall carousels. I do have my own little horse, a little aluminum kitty horse. And he's a 1930s horse, and he appeared with me at the Greece Public Library. So he goes to presentations when there are presentations to go to. I grew up around Rochester carousels. I've grown up in Greece, so I'm familiar with the carousels. Some of them are gone, but it's nice to keep the history alive. When you start talking about carousels, it's amazing to think that there are so many carousels in Monroe County. Ellison Park, Olympic Park, Island Cottage, Manitou Beach, the Mall at Greece Ridge Center, Treasure Island, which is in Greece, Southtown Plaza, Place Mall, Glen Haven, Boardwalk Park and Carnival Court, Seabreeze Park, Arundecoit Mall and Medley Center, Windsor Beach, Watoma Beach, Duran Eastman, Genesee Valley Park, Ontario Beach Park, Seneca Park, Strong Museum, Ontario Beach Park, Seneca Park, Strong Museum, and Willow Point. I'm sorry, this Willow Point Park. I typed it wrong. There are a lot of carousels, and they over a period of about 100 years. Some of these carousels didn't stay very long, and some were kind of long lasting. When you get to carousels, what's really interesting is why so many carousels? Why did people like carousels, and why did they run carousels? A lot of people would operate more than one carousel. And this picture here shows the Albion Amusement Company. There was a man named Oscar Brown, and he actually operated a carousel in the Seabreeze area. This is his train with his amusement rides, and he was known for going to carnivals, but he did have a carousel that he operated at Seabreeze area. It's interesting to think of carousels and how they moved back then. This was a common mode of entertainment for all. Everybody liked carousels, but this is how they moved. The trains transported carousels, and that's their biggest way of getting carousels around, why they were able to move so easily. I'd like to take a minute and talk about carousels and why so many, and the common dream. Today we have so many different ways to make extra money. You could become a driver for Amazon. You could be an Uber driver. There's so many different ways to earn extra money. You could sell Avon or some different products. Then most people did have jobs, but they had the common dream of making a little more money, being able to support the family better. So decided to run a carousel and make a little extra money. The whole idea of these carousels, they were brand new, and they wanted to make a little money. There's a dream of making money to support your family and have a better way of life. People were really interested in trying out, and so they could get a loan at a carousel. It was called a chattel mortgage, and they could get a carousel whenever they wanted, have a time frame. They could have it open a certain time. They could take it around to different areas or leave it one area. So this is what their dream was. And that's why there's so many variety of carousels. Some carousels operate in different places all over, and other carousels ran for a long time in one location.
Oh, okay. Where's that text?
These are some tickets from carousel, different carousels. And you could see Ontario Beach Park, 30 cents, 6 cents, Long's Carousel, 30 cents.
Ontario Beach, you've seen that one.
Could people turn off their microphones, please?
Oops.
So we're going to start with different carousels. Like I said, there's so many different carousels. I'm focusing on a majority of them, but it's hard to get them all in one presentation. I wanted to bring you to Manitou Beach in the town of Greece. Manitou Beach has been gone for a long time, and it's nice to actually put some faces on these horses on the screen.
Hello.
You can see these are different carousel horses from
the class. Let me talk to you later.
Machine in Manitou Beach. And you could see the different animals. This was a dare carousel with some Reese made. Reese was the man that operated the carousel, and you could see that he had different animals. What's really neat about carousels is they're all very unique and they have different features. Most carousels are not the same, so they're very unique and to the carousel itself. And each carousel has a story. For example, Manitou Beach was operated in the 1880s, 1890s. It was an older carousel, and it just, we really don't know what its whereabouts, but we do know that some of the animals were left in the area and went to collectors. I'm focusing a little on Greece because Greece has so many different carousels for its area. It's a small town. A lot of carousels, amazingly, were in Monroe County, and I think the one draw was the lakefront. People wanted to go somewhere, especially in the 1800s, 1900s. They wanted to go somewhere and have fun, and a carousel brought people to the location, and they were often at the end of railroad lines and trolley lines. Island Cottage was a hotel that was actually torn down a while ago, and it had a carousel there in the early part of the 1900s, and so operated by the Reese brothers. Island Cottage was also home to an amusement park called Treasure in the 1960s. Island Cottage is a central location far from the water. It's a well-traveled area at a hotel, and in the 60s they decided to amuse a carousel. It's interesting just to think carousel. Included here, you can see this is one of the earliest pictures I've ever seen of Ontario Beach Park. You can see the little kids on the carousel horse and the two men there. And it just brings you back to a different time of when people dressed up to go in carousels, when you had a uniform to work at a carousel. And like I said, this is one of the earliest pictures I've ever seen of Ontario Beach Park. Ontario Beach Park has a lot of history. And one of the cool things that it goes all the way back to the 1885. In 1885, the first carousel came to the park, and there were several carousels. We really don't know much about the carousels back in the 1880s, but we do know that in 1892, the Long Leopold carousel came to the park. It was sold in 1896, and there it went to Sylvan Beach, where a man named, his last name was Cotman. He ran the carousel, and he was called Cotman's Carousel. Cotman was somebody that was well known in that area, and that carousel actually lasted a long time. The Long Leopold carousel stayed in Sylvan Beach, and was its animals were sold off the carousel in the 70s, and the frame of the carousel still exists. So if you ever go to Sylvan Beach in the summer and you go to the amusement park there, you'll see the carousel frame. The carousel frame is original. It came from the Rochester, New York area, but the animals are not original. Now, when that carousel was sold, what happened was, sure enough, they replaced it with another carousel, a Long Leopold carousel, in 1897. And that carousel moved around and it is believed to have burned down in the 1940s elsewhere. The current carousel came in 1905. Here's some pictures of Ontario Beach Park. You could see that the building in the 1890s, it was a lot different than the carousel building today. You could, with a dome, the high up roof, and it's kind of fancy looking. The other picture is the Long Leopold Carousel, which it's a building that was housed the carousel that came from Rochester, New York. That building, it's my belief that it was original and housed that carousel for a long time. And the current carousel there, you can see, and it's just bright and cheerful. One thing I've really missed last year was seeing the carousels and riding them. So Ontario Beach Park and all the other carousels brings a smile to my face when I see their pictures. And you can see another picture of Ontario Beach Park. Ontario Beach Park was a Denzel carousel built in 1905. It's a menagerie carousel, which means that it's got different animals. It has the cats, it has the pigs, it has ostriches, it has a deer, giraffe, a lion, a tiger. Carousels like that are a lot of fun because you get a lot of choices of the animals to ride. I always think of Genesee Valley Park as almost a twin to Ontario Beach Park because it was very similar. But I have to go back in history a little because there's a lot of history to Genesee Valley Park. In fact, it's probably one of the ones that had a lot of carousels, and it's just so much history that most people don't realize it. Genesee Valley Park had a wealth of carousels. Its first one coming around 1893. At least that's the first mention of the carousel spinning at the park. In 1894, a Long Leopold carousel, number 4, is brought to the park. Now, that carousel was not owned, it was sold to a person that ran the carousel, and it was struck by lightning on July 13th, 1895. So what happened was actually the owner had come to check on the carousel. For some reason, he was there when he saw that it was on fire. This lightning struck it and burned it right down. It was not worth saving. Unfortunately, the fire trucks and emergency crews, they all tried to save the building, but it was just not able to be saved. Quickly, another carousel spinning at the location again. This was a very prime location. People liked riding the carousel there. There were some people that worked for the parks and worked for the county that didn't really care for a carousel spinning there because they felt that it kind of broke up the peacefulness of the area, having a carousel and all the activity there. But they still kept having carousels there. And I want to talk a little bit about the people that ran the carousels in this area. Now, we started off with Long Leopold that was run by a man named John Donnells, and he ran the carousel there, and he was partnered with another person. After that, they had another carousel. In 1896, mortgage, it's called a chattel mortgage. It was obtained to purchase a Gilly Goddard company carousel from Tonawanda for the park. We don't know much else about the carousel coming to the park, but we do know that a chattel mortgage was obtained for this carousel. We do not know how long it operated there. Now, there was some leasing changes. In order to run the carousel there, they had a lease agreement with a city, and it was at that time it was run by John Donnells, and later he added his brother-in-law Louis Myers to the carousel to work at the carousel. Now, they both lived in the area on Cottage Street, which was really not that far away, and they operated the carousel. So it's interesting to talk about that because this was somebody that they were family and they ran the carousel together. This was not their prime job. This was something that they did on the side, but they actually kept long hours at the carousel and put a lot of time into it. Now, the carousel was moved in 1902 to a different location, and a roundhouse was built for the carousel again. So there were some changes in the buildings. A Denzel carousel was placed at the park, I'm guessing about 1913, but it's really unknown exactly when the Denzel carousel came. This was not this last one to operate there. This Denzel carousel was an older Denzel, and it burned down January 22nd, 1953. Now, when people talk about Genesee Valley Park, and if there's any person that actually remembers this carousel, chances are they remember the newer carousel, which was came in 1953. What happened was, after the fire, they decided to replace the carousel and actually had to go searching because in 1953, it was a little harder finding carousels. In the 1900s, they were making them all over the place, and there was probably more of a wealth of carousels. There were classified ads all over the place advertising carousels for sale. When somebody got a newer, better version, the old carousel would be put for sale there. Anyway, so they had to go searching for a carousel, and they actually went to Acushnet Park, which is in New Bedford, Massachusetts. They found this carousel, and the amusement park had been closed at that time. And it was a Denzel carousel, a lot like our carousel at Ontario Beach Park. they decided to purchase it and run the carousel at Genesee Valley Park. This carousel spun at the park until it was sold in 1965. And as a note here, after moving, the carousel was sold piecemeal in 1979. This was at a different location. Hang on for a sec. Let's see. This is going back dental carousel. You could see that it's a dental carousel, but the animals look a little different than what you would see at Ontario Beach Park, because it was an older carousel, an older version of a dental carousel. And we really don't have a whole lot of pictures of the dental carousel that operated and burnt down there. Now, Genesee Valley Park's last carousel was a dental, like I said. It was like very similar to Ontario Beach Park. The carousel was a menagerie, just like Ontario Beach Park's carousel, with one exception. It did actually have bears on the carousel, which is unusual. There's not that many carousels that have bears. It did have the similar rabbits, and it also had pigs and deer and tigers and lions. It had similar animals, and it had a similar look to the carousel. Looking at these pictures, you might think by first glance that it would be Ontario Beach Park, but it was the carousel at Genesee Valley Park. Now, in the top here, this is a picture of Harold Bolin. Now, this gentleman was the last person to run the Genesee Valley Park carousel. It sort of happened that he ended up with the carousel. It was running a concession at the park, and I'm not sure if it was really his intention to end up with a carousel, but the other person's concession ended and the lease ended, so he took over and ran the carousel. And he was known for dropping a ticket in front of a kid and say, "Hey, is that your ticket?" His idea was just he liked to give free rides out, and he liked to see the joy of kids getting excited about riding the carousel. You can see that what a nice carousel this was. And the color pictures are actually from when it operated in Atlanta, Georgia. It operated at Zoo Atlanta, or also known as Grant Park. It was purchased actually by an amusement company that sold it to the zoo in Atlanta, and it operated there until 1979. They decided to sell the animals off piecemeal, and the frame itself was kept. And they kept the frame in storage, and eventually the people of Chattanooga, Tennessee decided to carve animals for the carousel. And what they did was they carved the animals, and they repopulated the carousel, and it's currently spinning in Coolidge Park in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's really nice to see this carousel come full circle. It came from Acushnet Park in New Bedford, Massachusetts, came to Rochester, New York, and then after that, it went to Zoo Atlanta, or also known as Grant Park. And when it was separated, it later found life at Coolidge Park in Chattanooga. So it's got a happy story. This is just another picture of Genesee Valley Park's fire. It's very sad to know that we've actually had several carousel fires, and they're all such tragedies to think of these beautiful machines being lost that way. In these cases, most of them, they really didn't know what happened. They thought maybe some kids went in there and started a fire. There were different ideas that maybe it was all just an accident, but I believe it was an accident. It just, we'll never have the real story of why the carousel burned down. Now, there's a lot of carousels in Monroe County, so you're going to jump around a little bit over the county. Olympic Park was on Scottsville Road in Chile, and they had one of the newer carousels. When I say newer, it was from about the 1950s. It was Alan Herschel carousel, and you could see from this picture that it had a little music sound piece here. They didn't have the band organs at that time. they had a nice carousel overall, and it operated Olympic Park. Olympic Park was a fairly good venture. The company was, the family, in the 80s, they were competing with different amusement parks that were much bigger. Seabreeze was actually bigger, and also Darien Lake. There was just, the amusement industry was struggling with the really big amusement parks taking over. And if you were smaller, you sometimes would struggle just to try to get the attention away from the bigger and better rides. Now this is Ellison Park. Ellison Park had a really interesting history because it was run by the O'Loughlin family, and this carousel came in 1937. This carousel began at Erie Beach in Ontario, Canada, and at some point they decided to change the frame of the carousel. So they put the horses onto a different frame, a Alan Herschel frame, and I believe they thought it would be more portable that way. It went to Ellison Park in 1937. It didn't really operate that long at Ellison Park. I'm guessing that they just found that it didn't have much of a business. They had a lot of carousels in the parks in Monroe County, but I just don't think it had enough business to stay there. So it was sold to Glen Park in Williamsville, New York. And after that, it went to Skyland Tower, which is in Canada. Skyland Tower had the carousel for a little while, but unfortunately, it all got auctioned off. The frame is believed to still exist, but the carousel animals were auctioned off piecemeal. When you look at the carousel, you can see these are actually all pictures from when it was in Skyland Park. And it was a beautiful carousel with very nice animals. It was a menagerie, but it was mostly horses. And it's very sad to see that this carousel was sold piecemeal, but it moved around a lot. And I'm sure it had many kids that really enjoyed this carousel. Okay, Seneca Park. Seneca Park is got some shared history with Seabreeze Park because of the Long family. Now, this carousel, the original carousel that was at Seabreeze was a Long carousel. And originally, the PTC 36, the carousel we associate with Seabreeze, went to Seneca Park. But in 1926, they traded carousels because Seneca Park was just not as busy. So they traded, and they had the Long carousel stay at the Seneca Park. The Long carousel was the carousel that burned down. It burned down November 1st, 1948. It's actually some people in the park, they were doing some archery, and they noticed the fire, and they went to one of the concession stands to report it. So it happened in the afternoon. They struggled with getting a water supply to put out the fire. Obviously, it was during the day, so there were more people to help put out the fire, but they were struggling with water supply, so they lost the carousel very sadly, and we lost another treasure. Now this leads me to a different story here. There's a man named, his nickname was Squeaky, but he was also known as Bill Eddy. I also want to thank Sue for helping me with this, and Bill helping piece this story together. Carousels were kind of neat because you could own a carousel and move it wherever, and bring a lot of joy to people, and especially kids. Bill Eddy was one of those people that his family helped run a carousel and bring a lot of joy to the kids of the area. He ran the carousel at both Seneca Park and Genesee Valley Park in the 1950s. And he actually had a lease agreement with Seneca Park to run the carousel at the same location where the Seneca Park first carousel burned down. So it was a similar location. What's interesting too is in the 50s, there was a growth of little kiddie amusement parks, and they actually had a kiddie park in Seneca Park Zoo, in addition to this carousel which was operating outside the zoo. This carousel didn't, and the other carousel that burned down in Seneca Park, they were not part of the zoo, they were part of the park itself. So they operated separately. And this beautiful little carousel operated here in the 1950s. It didn't stay very long, and it apparently went to Olympic Park to the Schuler family, but we really don't know what happened to it after. Unfortunately, a lot of these things it's hard to find total records of these. So we're lucky just to have the pictures of this beautiful carousel and many other carousels. Now, Strong Museum is not, it's a newer one. It's not like a carousel that's been in our county for a long time. However, it has a lot of history. It's from 1918. It's a really beautiful carousel built by the Ellen Herschel Company in North Tonawanda. And this carousel came to Strong Museum in 1997 as a part of the museum. You can go in there you don't have to actually pay for to go in the whole museum. You can actually just ride it. It's located outside the museum. It's part itself, right next to the diner. It's a beautiful carousel. It's also got a band organ too. Seabreeze Amusement Park. I know there's a lot of people out here that love Seabreeze just like I do. I grew up with Seabreeze. Not only did my own parents take me to Seabreeze, but my aunt and uncle used to take us there. When we were kids, my aunt and uncle actually lived in Irondequoit, so that was their treat, was to take us to Seabreeze and to sit on those red rocking chairs while we would ride the carousel. I think everybody from the Monroe County area probably has some memory of Seabreeze and still does. Now, this is the original PTC carousel, and the Seabreeze carousel burned down on March 31st in 1994. It's such a sad story. It was such a beautiful carousel, and I think a lot of people can remember where they were at that time. I know I was working when I heard the news on the radio that the carousel had caught fire, and it's just like, oh no. Even as a teenager, I hadn't totally gotten into researching carousels until after Seabreeze burned down. It just made me wonder, just like, we're losing so much history. Now, the new Seabreeze carousel, it opened 1996 and includes beautiful carvings by artist Ed Roth. And you can see the talent of these different carousel horses. It's all horses with chariots, and it's a beautiful machine. I'm really very proud of Seabreeze with all they've done. They have so much history, and just to have another wooden carousel. This carousel actually has a historic frame. It's a PTC 31, and it came from Ohio. So they tried to keep the history together by not only having wooden animals, but to have a historic frame and bringing that to life again too. You can see this picture here, which is the carousel itself at Seabreeze. And it's sort of reminiscent of the first one, but it's definitely got its own unique look. And I always just get so excited when I see the carousel. It's such a beautiful machine. Both machines were, and just riding it is just exciting. Most people don't think about the mall carousels. It just seems like an afterthought as far as history goes. The sad thing is that we're seeing these carousels become part of history. Now, I've been researching mall carousels, and I find it really sad that, for example, malls overall are losing steam. There was such an explosion of mall building, and many of these malls are now either vacant or torn down or just overall gone. So with that, with the carousels were a big part of a lot of these malls opening. In New York State, there were a lot of malls that had carousels. When it comes to Monroe County, we had Marketplace Mall, Irondequoit Mall, and Grease Ridge Mall. Now, both the Irondequoit Mall and Grease Ridge are very similar. They're made by the Bartash-Dawley Carousel Company in Italy. Actually, all three were, but Irondequoit Mall and Grease Ridge Mall are both double-decker carousels. Marketplace Mall was a single-decker carousel. Now, Marketplace Mall was the first carousel to be lost to this area of mall carousels. Just very quietly disappeared from the mall, and it was in the food court. It went to Israel. What's interesting about this move was, even though it went to Israel, it retained its name on the carousel. I'll show you a picture of it too. Now, this right here is the Marketplace carousel, and you could see like the Grease Ridge Mall has its name on it and still does. Well, the Marketplace Mall carousel still says Marketplace Carousel, honoring the state of New York. And it operates in Israel with that rounding board. So I don't know a lot of people that go traveling to Israel, but if you ever go there, there's your carousel from Rochester. And what a neat thing, it's actually still operating. There seems to be more of a market in other countries for used mall carousels. So we see a lot of mall carousels disappearing, not just the ones that are in New York, but all over the United States. The mall carousels are disappearing to foreign markets in other countries. Recently, it was a Irondequoit Mall that went to China, and Marketplace Mall, it's been gone for a while, but it quietly was moved to Israel. Apparently there is, it seems to me that there's actually a market in these other countries for carousels. And also they find that the prices are actually cheaper to ship these carousels all the way from the United States to where they are. And they find it's actually more reasonable than buying them from elsewhere. So a lot of these carousels that are in the malls, they don't just disappear, they disappear to other countries. As I said before, there are a lot of carousels all over Monroe County. Now, Glen Haven had a carousel in Irondequoit. I don't have a lot of history on it. There was more than one carousel, and we really just don't know the whereabouts of the carousel. It quietly disappeared, just like many other carousels. Southtown Kittyland was a carousel, and it was in Southtown Plaza in Henrietta. Now, in the 1950s, it was just a part of life. You had almost all over the place, you had little kiddie parks because of the baby boomer age. You had all these, in the 1940s, all these men coming back from war, starting families, and there needed to be something to do. So all over the United States, there were these little kiddie parks popping up everywhere. If it was maybe at a drive-in theater, that you'd have a little amusement park, in a plaza, by a zoo. These were all over the place, and like everything, they had their time period, and they quietly disappeared. They moved out of their places. Southtown went to Conneaut Amusement Park in Pennsylvania, and that park is actually facing bankruptcy right now, so we don't know what's going to happen to that carousel. And down below here is Carnival Court Park. This area in Irondequoit, it was the Seabreeze, and it's got a lot of history. These carousels came and went, and there were a lot of different people that operated carousel. There were carousels on the pier, and there were carousels in the groves. They operated carousels everywhere. There was a train line that went to the beachfront area, so they had a lot of people that were coming into the area, and there were a lot of carousels that could ride. There were very likely several carousels operating at one time in the Irondequoit Seabreeze area. Now, this is Watoma Beach. Watoma Beach has an interesting history because, for one thing, a lot of these carousels and amusement parks were by the water. People flocked to the shoreline because it was just beautiful and a nice way to get away from the heat, just to go on the beach. Well, Watoma Beach was really small, but they had a carousel there. And this carousel that's riding away was a Parker carousel. It's been riding in the woods since 1970s. This picture is shown in around 2005. And in recent years, I've gone there and you could barely make out this carousel. What's happened to it is a center pole, which is this pole right here, has basically, it was vertical and it was slowly starting to angle towards the ground. Well, now it's almost horizontal and just about all the wood's off it. So it's just a jumble of gears and metal pieces. At one time, you could actually see the engine in the ground there. And this particular area is actually owned by New York State and right by the Parkway. And you have to, I asked a person's permission just to go through their backyard to reach this area. This was a while ago, but you could find this carousel. It was basically usually in a marshy area. It just rotting away, and it's just so sad. This carousel operated for a while here, and unfortunately they didn't save the frames of carousels at that time, so they left it to rot in the woods there. And most likely they sold the band organ and the horses themselves, but we don't know much of that history. Sadly, a lot of these carousels, it's just, some of them are easier to track than others, and this one is still quite a bit of mystery. I want to talk a little bit about what happened to our carousels. Now, these are just pictures of people with carousel horses. Obviously, they came from different carousels, and they may or may not have known what carousel they got it from. They may have just got it from somebody's carousel being sold piecemeal. A lot of these carousels were sold piecemeal, which means that they were sold horse by horse. You could get a horse. Fire auctions, moves, they all had a venture of their own. A lot of these carousels, they moved around a lot and eventually just got sold, or they were damaged. There's stories of different things like floods and hurricanes, and of course fire. Fire is very dangerous to carousels because obviously these are wood horses, most of them, so they burn. Now, luckily, over the years, preservation has become more important and less carousels are being sold piecemeal. There's organizations like the National Carousel Association, which is a great organization, and they help preserve carousels and also preserve their history. There are more cases of carousels when they are if they have to be sold, they're sold together as a piece, not just in pieces. So it's great because we went through a period where a lot of carousels were being sold piecemeal, and now there's more of a chance for preservation. This picture is of Roseland. I didn't talk a lot about Roseland because it wasn't in Monroe County, but Roseland, which came from, the carousel came from Syracuse and then went to Roseland in Canandaigua and is now part of the Destiny USA Mall. And you could still enjoy its beautiful carvings as part of the mall and ride the carousel. As you can see, there's so many different carousels that have been in Monroe County, and there's so much history. What's really neat about a lot of these carousels is that they were family run, and they had a lot of history. They operated in so many different areas, but they're all unique carousels. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about, oh my God, let's see. So I ride carousels and I write about carousels. So this is actually what I do for fun is I research carousels. What really gets to me is the stories that there are in newspapers and from other people. Carousels are part of people's lives, and it's really nice to preserve them. I think it's great to be able to share their stories and be able to talk about them. There's so many carousels that are just not known about anymore, and it's nice to be able to preserve that history. So I have written different carousel books, and I'm just sharing with you if you want more information. I wrote my original one back in 2001, Horses in Motion, and then I wrote more Horses in Motion. I also wrote a book called Murder at the Carousel. What's funny about carousels is you think nothing ever happens at carousels. Well, It's not really the case. Carousels were controversial in their age. They were an area, people would come to them and flock to them, and they were very busy areas. So that they were sometimes looked down upon by not only the loud band organ music, but the crowds that gathered at the carousel. So obviously this presentation isn't just about books, but I'd like to share with you these books if you are interested. The Greece Public Library does have some of my books, and you can also find them on Amazon. As that concludes actually my presentation, I want to apologize for the little snafu with the internet. Unfortunately, when you have internet, it just sometimes it just decides to go right out.
So much. We understand there's issues like that.
It's funny, I have my phone too for the internet if I needed it, and that didn't work either.
So what I'd like everybody to do, if you have a question, if you place it in the chat, I will then read the question so we're just kind of not talking over everybody. There's been some nice, so Gina was noticing that when you were talking about the Seabreeze carousel burning, that she could see the smoke as she was driving on 590. And Rose mentioned that, is it Canisius Lake, Rose, that has been purchased as a whole, and the new owners will be operating the park this year? I thought I heard that.
Are you talking about maybe Long Point Park?
I think so. Yeah, maybe that's it.
I know now Long Point Park did have a carousel. They had amusement park there. And I know the carousel was sold, but I know that at one time they were actually very interested in getting amusement rides or just a carousel there. I haven't really followed that, but I do know that they actually had some interest in an amusement park that was closing at one time. But I think it's interesting if we are able to go back to our roots and bring more carousels in. I think that's wonderful.
Yes. And then Douglas wrote that Destiny USA Mall in Syracuse was once called the Carousel Mall, reflecting its highlighting Roseland's carousel as its symbol.
Yes.
That was kind of neat.
What's really neat is that they bought the carousel, and I really believe that they were thinking of the carousel as a highlight of their mall. I mean, they hadn't even really built the mall yet, and they bought the carousel. So, and they spent a lot of time and effort to lovingly restore the carousel to what it looks like today. It's wonderful that what they've done. I know they've. I really hope, COVID's been really tough on malls, so I really hope that they're able to have some good luck this year with visitors and shopping, so they can continue to do a great job, which they do.
Exactly. And also they said that Canandaigua citizens attempted to retain their carousel, conducting a Hold Your Horses campaign. Yes. And at the auction, the animals were up for bid one by one, and then for a group price for all. As it turns out, the citizens were outbid by a Syracuse developer.
Well, what's good, I think it's great that the Canandaigua citizens tried to do that. But what's good is that the carousel was saved. And it was able to stay in New York too. It didn't really go too far from home, so overall it was win-win because we still saved the carousel.
Yes. It says, thanks so much for the presentation. Wow, there were a lot of carousels in town.
It's funny because I didn't even touch base on all of them. There's just so many. It's like, and there's certain families too that would run more than one carousel in the area. It was just overwhelming. Like, for example, and there were carousels in spots that you wouldn't even think, like Durand Eastman Park there had a carousel. I don't think it ran that long, but it had a roundhouse and everything. So there's carousels that like just, you ask, you find them, they're all over the place in Monroe County.
Exactly. Yes, there will be a recording of this. We've recorded this presentation, and it will be up on the Greece Historical website within the week. Gina's wondering if you are working on a new book.
Yes. One of my my biggest thing is I've been working on a mall carousel book. And I started out because I realized that there's so many carousels being taken from malls. And I decided to do all of the United States, which is really an endeavor. And it's made harder by the fact with COVID closing a lot of the carousels. So there's been even more movement. In fact, the biggest problem is the malls are a lot of the malls are closing or in jeopardy. So there's carousels in these malls, and these carousels are in almost dead malls. So it's really sad because they're going to move soon. So that's actually the book that I've been working on is a book that's details the history of these carousels and where they were in the malls, because I think it's going to be a part of history that could be lost because malls, with the internet, the malls are just not as popular as they once were. They had the boom probably mostly in the 80s and 1990s, and they all wanted a carousel in their malls. So that's my current research project, is researching carousels in malls.
Nice. And Patrick wanted to invite everyone to visit the National Carousel Association website, which is www.carousels.org. I'm sure there's some cool info on there.
The National Carousel Association is awesome. I can't say enough about them. They are a great organization. They also, they just do so much outreach, and they also preserve carousels. So I want to give my thumbs up to them too, because they have been very supportive too. Whenever I had a question, I've been researching since 1994 in carousels. So I've definitely asked their expertise over the years, and they've been able to help me with different questions and pictures and stuff. So there are definitely research, and they cover all of the United States. So if you're curious about a carousel that's elsewhere, they're really a great resource.
Oh, great. Someone suggested it would be nice to hear from Galen, who's one of our participants. And I misspoke as to the name of the park that Rose was, I thought it was Canisius, but I'm going to probably butcher the name. Conneaut, Conneaut?
Yes.
It's Conneaut.
Okay.
It's pronounced Conneaut.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I butchered the name too, and that's because I actually did mention it during the presentation. Is the carousel that was at Southtown Park ended up there now? If Rose is there, what is the update? Because I know they declared bankruptcy, and I kind of lost track of what was happening with that.
Rosa, do you have any more information? Well, if you do, at some point, jump into the chat and we'll let you tell us about it. Linda, have you seen the carousels at the House on the Rock in Spring Green, Wisconsin?
I've heard about it, but I haven't yet had a chance to visit. I hear it's really kind of pretty neat.
Neat. And then Megan Kristen wondered, why so many fires, and was there ever a connection?
I could kind of give you a little background on that. For example, I think Seneca Park, the story was that they had once chased some kids away from the building. That they got cold from, and they started a little bonfire. And I'm not sure if it was in the building or near the building. I think a lot of times these kids didn't realize back then. They might not have realized really that you start a fire near a building. They might not have got the idea that they could burn down a whole carousel. I think they were mostly unintentional. Lightning was an object of a problem. As I said, with Genesee Valley Park, that one carousel, it was struck by lightning, and they obviously didn't have a lightning rod on that carousel, and it just burned right down. So there's definitely, it can be people. There's also a situation going back to the Seabreeze area. I can't remember if it's Carnival Court or Boardwalk Park, where some kids had started a fire right behind it. Unfortunately, I think a lot of it was just kids being irresponsible, or just either bored or things like that. But we don't really know. Like I said, it's you read through the newspaper articles that talk about the fires, and a lot of times we don't know if they what the result was of their investigation. We just know that the carousel was lost. nowadays we have the sprinkler systems in most of the carousel buildings, so it's a little different today because back then they didn't have sprinkler systems, so it was a much different situation.
Interesting. Douglas said that the painted images on the decorative panels were based upon local historical images, primarily deriving from historic photographs made available to them by his father, J. Sheldon Fisher, via his book, A Victor Album, that was published in 1981.
That's the Eastview Mall carousel.
Okay. And I'm sorry I didn't talk much about Eastview Mall, but they have some beautiful local pictures that were painted. I know that I think, let's see, Grease Ridge Mall has pictures too. So I think it's pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's nice to see the local images. Not every fiberglass carousel has a local tie-in. So it's really neat that, and I'm glad you shared that.
Someone asked, Chris asked if you could talk about the music or the organs on the carousels.
Sure. I'm going to start with saying that, first of all, the most of the carousels had band organs. I think the more popular one in this area was Wurlitzer because they were from North Tonawanda area. Now, some carousels actually had more than one band organ. The idea was that if one was malfunctioning, they have another one running. So they always had one band organ in operation. In the 1940s, they started having issues because of wartime and running out of supplies. So some of these carousels lost their band organs because they just couldn't get the parts for them. Back then, they would actually talk among themselves. The carousel operators would kind of be all friends with each other, and they would try to find parts. But so some of these carousel band organs were probably lost because they just got rid of them because they didn't work. The band organs have, obviously they use the paper rolls, and I would say just about every carousel had a band organ. Now, they were the object of contention with a lot of people because people like to complain about the band organ music. They said it was too loud. And you had the situation like Genesee Valley Park, even Seneca Park before they put a carousel in. They're like, we don't want a carousel because the band organ is too loud. That was the biggest thing of contention among carousels was the band organ, but they're beautiful band organs to have. Now, before Ontario Beach Park, the one carousel band organ was Artisan, and it came in the 1920s. It was bought by the city of Rochester. And that's gone and replaced by a Stinson band organ. The band organs are, I think that's all I could think of off the top of my head. If that person has any more questions, she can, send another message.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah. John says about the Roseland Carousel, my grandfather found that one in a barn by Owasco Lake. Brought it to our Long's hardware store in Seabreeze, fixed it up, and sold it to Muir at Roseland. So it's kind of cool.
I think that, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I did hear that the Long family was very helpful in finding that carousel, which is great.
Doris says there was a merry-go-round behind a Catholic school on Prince Street. My husband rode on it as a kid.
Oh, really? If she's able to give, if she has any more information, I'd love to hear more. I know that these carousels, they popped up in street corners everywhere. I think the idea was, if you can make a little money on the side, you can put a carousel anywhere. And there were carousels on street corners in the city. If you could find a vacant lot, you could put a carousel there as long as the city didn't object. But now she said it was Prince Street. Is that correct?
Yes, Prince Street. Yep. Behind a Catholic school on Prince Street.
I'll have to look into that. That one I haven't heard of. So that's very interesting and helpful because, like I said, I'm always still finding new carousels that operate. A lot of it is just because they moved around so much. So it's sometimes hard to track them down.
Yeah. Somebody said, was Willow Point discussed?
I didn't go into that a whole lot just because I don't have a lot of pictures. That operated, say, into the 60s, and there was the whole park was sold. I I don't have a whole lot of information. I hope that helps a little bit. It was it did have a carousel. It was I believe it's the Alan Herschel carousel, and I think let's see, the Schuler family was the last people to have it. I believe the park, but that just didn't seem to that park didn't seem to last that much longer.
Gotcha.
I hope that helps it. Willow Point's I wish I knew more about it and had more pictures of it. It looked like it was a nice amusement park.
Nice. Someone asked us, there's a technical difference between a carousel and merry-go-round, or was it just a usage or a branding issue?
Well, it was more of a preference, what you wanted to call the machine. I would say that some manufacturers like to call it one thing or another. And there were also variations of the spelling of carousel too. So there's no difference. It was really just the way they advertised and promoted their product or machines. No difference at all.
Okay. Rose says that Destiny USA is one of the few malls that has an antique wooden carousel, as most mall carousels are fiberglass.
That's correct. Most malls do have just fiberglass carousels, and antique carousels in malls are very uncommon. There are some wooden carousels, but they're like newer carousels built, within the past 20 years. There are some carousels that were built for malls that are wooden, but they're not antique. So it's very rare to find an antique carousel in a mall. Yes.
And then I guess Craig says that 2 of the horses were stolen and then ransomed. I'm thinking from Destiny.
Story you're talking about, I think it was right around the time that the carousel was sold. You're talking about Roseland, and they disappeared, and I believe okay, but there was a bit of a story and a little bit of tension there because of those horses being taken.
Gotcha. Catherine says, thank you for the talk. A few years back, I was at the Williamsburg Museum. They had a display of carousel horses. The docent was explaining how thrilled they were to have Denzel animals. My friend and I told them about the Ontario Beach Park carousel. And the docent had never heard of it. And that was strange because her husband was from Rochester.
That's funny. Well, I think too, maybe some people maybe just didn't like, they weren't into the carousels. I mean, when it comes to my children, for example, my son's not really into the carousels, but my daughter is. So it may be just somebody just didn't really care about it. I find that carousels are great, just bring back great memories, and they're beautiful. But I think it's just some people might not, be as fond of carousels as I am.
True. And John says, did you know this is the 25th anniversary of the Seabreeze Carousel? We will be celebrating. We will be releasing the video Circle of Dreams soon on YouTube.
That is wonderful because I grew up with Seabreeze and I have very fond memories. It was both Ontario Beach Park and Seabreeze that were my carousels that I grew up with. And I take my children on the Seabreeze Carousel now. So like I said, that those 2 carousels are really special to me. So I'm glad to see them celebrating 25 years. I don't know about you, but it just doesn't seem like 25 is like, boy, time flies by, but it's just nice to see that machine going strong, and what a beautiful carousel it is.
Exactly. Let's see. Sorry, I had to open up the chat. Does everybody see the whole chat now? No? Okay. Never knew there's so many carousels in the area. Amazing presentation. John says the NCA will be visiting Rochester this fall.
That's correct. The National Carousel Association is planning a conference for this fall, and it's really exciting because it's nice to see a group of carousel enthusiasts coming to Rochester area, and just to be part of that excitement. So I'm really excited about that, to see that, and just to, for them to share the Rochester history.
Great. If Olcott Beach Carousel Park opens this summer, you will find their carousel horses have been restored.
that's good news to me. My kids love that park. So we were very sad. Last year was very sad for us because my daughter especially loves carousels for as far as of the kids in the family. And it was really tough this year not being able to ride any carousel. So we're excited and looking forward to seeing that the beautiful little carousel operating. And I know my daughter's gonna be like all over the carousel.
There you go. And Gabe mentioned that at least 3 operating carousels in, I'm gonna mispronounce it, Herschel Carousel Museum in North Tonawanda.
Yes.
Put a link to the Conneaut Lake Park if people wanted to check that out.
That's great.
Let's see. I think I can recall a small merry-go-round that was mentioned that was at Sacred Heart Academy on Prince Street, or was tired or partially stored in a small outbuilding on the property. I remember seeing parts of it when the Blackfriars Theater was using it as a rehearsal in a storage space.
Really? If she's still on here, I just wonder like about what years she's thinking, because I'm gonna have to research that one.
Okay, that was from Jean. So Jean, if you have more information on that, let us know.
Yeah.
Probably maybe 20 years ago when Blackfriars was using that space, and I remember there's a small building. It's still next to the parking lot out in the back, and there were parts of what appeared to be a carousel stored in it. I don't know if it's the same one or it was pieces of something else.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to see if I can find out more, because like I said, a lot of these carousels, it's just really coming upon the right person, asking the right questions, because they still find carousels in warehouses and storage and trailers. There's one in Buffalo that they had found stored for years, so you never know. So this was really interesting to me. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah. And Galen says 6 of the Seabreeze carousel horses survived the fire and are back in place on the new carousel.
Oh yes, I did fail to mention. There's just so much to say, but yes, I've actually heard that. But I think it's wonderful. If I remember right, they were being restored at the time, so they were they were saved because they weren't on the carousel. So it's just nice that we still have that a little bit of the Seabreeze original carousel on it.
Yes, definitely. And Gabe also mentioned that there was very little documentation on Willow Point Park in Webster, and that he remembers that when he was a kid.
Well, if you hang on for a minute, I can tell you what I know about it. Give me a second here. I had to consult my own notes because, like I said, it's hard to remember everything. Willow Point. Bear with me a minute here.
Linda, do you want me to type your email address on there in case anybody wants to get a hold of you?
I welcome emails, and I'm happy to answer questions or and talk to you about it. I'm going to go back to Willow Point Park for a second here. I was located at 1121 Bay Road in Webster, and it was started in 1930 by Everett Deneve. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, I'm not sure, but it was later sold in 1939 to Jack Garlinger, and new attractions were appearing in the 1940s and 1950s. That's probably when the carousel came, because it was about that time frame.
Cool.
And so Garlinger managed the park until let's see, into the 1950s, and it changed hands several times, and it was sold again, and then it was let's see, I think that's half the battle. It was sold times. Garlinger still managed the park, and then he tried to sell the park to the town of Webster, but the town wasn't interested in the park. So Garlinger died in 1965, and I think this actually sort of led to the downfall of the park. Joseph Schuler, who ran Olympic Park, he had been friends with Garlinger, and he purchased the park and its rides, and he reopened in 1966. But it really didn't stay open. It was by the 1970, everything was starting to be sold, and a lot of parts of it were taken to Olympic Park. So some of the rides went to Olympic Park, and some of them were probably sold. So that's probably a lot of it. There wasn't a lot of the problems, I think, with detailing its history was it changed owners many times, and after that it struggled to stay open. Some of the rides probably went to Olympic Park because of the Schuler connection. Schuler was he was a very good businessman and very interested in amusement parks. So he probably took a few of those rides to Olympic Park and probably sold the rest. But I don't really have a record of exactly what happened to that carousel. They had a similar carousel at Olympic Park, and I'm not sure whether it would have been the same one or if it was a different one. I hope that helps.
Gabe also mentioned that filmmaker Frank LaLoggia has a film on Willow Point Park on YouTube.
This goes back a while, but I actually went to the Rundle Library to view that, to view the original film when I was researching the carousels, and I did see that it shows, if I remember right, it shows the park when it was pretty much, you know, at the end of its heyday, and you know, it's kind of reminiscent of what was at the park. But that's actually a very good film. I'm glad it's on YouTube because. Like I said, the last time I saw it was actually at the Rundle Library, and I watched the video, or it wasn't a video, it was I watched actual film itself.
Oh, neat. And there were lots of comments about what a wonderful presentation, and thanks for the contributions from some of the viewers and everything, and that everybody has thoroughly enjoyed this.
I'm so glad. You know, this is my first Zoom presentation on Carousel, so it was a little nerve-wracking because there's so much information I want to share, and it's hard to fit in everything. Like I may have missed a carousel, but I did give the whole feel. You know, it just, when you look at the carousels that were in Monroe, it's really amazing what we've had, and I'm always hoping that when I do presentations like this, that I'm able to find out something new that I didn't know, because preserving this history is important. And, you know, when you're able to preserve it, you can share it with others as well. So I really enjoy interacting and to present it overall, what I know, and share share so we can all share together.
Exactly. Does anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to add them in the chat.
Yeah, if anybody's still there from out of town, if you could just type in the city you're from, it's just kind of fun to see where everybody is from. Not the Rochester and Monroe County people. There's a West Virginia just came in, and I guess that's all the questions. And I want to thank everybody for coming. You imagine you're in the conference room at the library, so but watch our website or our Facebook page. We'd also love to have you become a member of the Greece Historical Society. But
Bill, could you put Linda's email address in the chat to everybody?
I did put that in the chat.
Did you make sure you sent it to everyone? Or if not, could you do it again? People are asking.
Like I said, I do check my email every day. I do have kids, so I may not always respond back, you know, instantly.
Oh, I had direct mail. Oh, shoot. What is it? Oh, I see what I did. I was asking Gina. Now I got to look up the let's see.
It's
LBA.
It's so Gina just
RTASH at AOL.com.
Yeah, Gina put it in there. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
And someone says we don't have to drive home, so thanks for the nice program.
There's the biggest advantage of doing this is not having to drive, especially you never know what you get weather-wise in March.
That is true.
Only disadvantage is having your Time Warner's internet.
Well, on the recording, I think we'll try to edit that part out.
Thank you.
You're going to challenge my skills, aren't you, Bill?
No, luckily I have a 94-year-old who does all my editing for me.
Oh, good.
Okay. He's still a young kid.
Awesome. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions, but again, lots of thanks for the program. It was fantastic. So
Oh, I had a question, and I didn't put it on the, but do they all turn counterclockwise?
All the carousels in the United States all spin the same way. Now in Europe, they spin the other direction. So we spin counterclockwise and they spin it clockwise. The reason being is actually we have the ring machines. Well, we used to have the ring machines, and they all spin that way because the ring machines.
Yeah.
I don't think the ring machines ever caught on in Europe. It was so we kept all the same direction because the ring machines. That's what I've always
Yeah, well,
heard. So yes,
Some
they're
of them
all,
drive on the wrong side of the road too over there, so.
yeah, they do things different. I know, especially in England, they go the opposite way. I believe all of Europe goes the other way, but I don't think the ring machines were ever really big in Europe as they were today. Obviously, well, there's not many ring machines left today, but that's the little bit of left of ring machines. They influence the way our carousels were.
At Ontario Beach Park, you can still see the block of wood that held the ring machine on one of the posts.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, everybody. It's 8:30, and actually, we used to have to say we got to be out of here by 8:30 because they're going to close the library, but
Not closing the library right now.
it's already closed. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves tonight. I hope to see you next month, or at least at our final program in May. We're planning some outdoor activities, classes or a lecture in the summertime. I'm afraid we're not going to have our strawberry festival, and we're not going to have a pasta dinner. So if you can help us out, it'd be great. So.
Well, it's always good to support the Greece Historical Society. You do so much for our community.
Well, thank you. So are we done? And thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bill, too. You've both been wonderful.
Oh, good. We've kind of got this down to a thing now. So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much again for attending. It has been recorded and will be sent out for you. And thanks for attending. Have a nice evening.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Linda.
You can hit the clap button there to
See, I had to find it.
All right. Yeah.